My name is Haley, and I'm 26 years old. I'm standing in a courtroom right now watching my sister cry. My mother won't even look at me. My father keeps shaking his head like I'm the biggest disappointment of his life. But here's the thing. I'm not backing down. Not this time. Let me take you back to where this all started. It was a Tuesday morning in March. I was supposed to drive to my first big client presentation. I'd been working at a marketing firm for 3 years. This pitch could make my career. I walked outside to my car and stopped dead in my tracks. My beautiful silver sedan was gone. Just gone. My heart started racing. I checked my phone. Nothing. No messages, no calls. I ran back inside my apartment. I called my sister Madison. She didn't answer. I called again and again. On the 4th try, she picked up. Her voice was shaky. She said she borrowed my car last night. She needed to meet friends. She promised she'd return it before morning. But there was something else in her voice. Something that made my stomach drop. I asked her where my car was. The silence that followed felt like forever. She told me she crashed it. Not just a little fender bender. She totaled it, wrapped it around a telephone pole at 2 in the morning. I couldn't breathe. I asked if she was okay. She said yes. Then I asked the question that changed everything. Was she drinking? Another long silence. Then she admitted it. She'd had a few drinks. Maybe more than a few. She left a party and thought she was fine to drive. My car, my insurance, my entire life potentially ruined because my little sister made a terrible choice. I told her to stay where she was. I was coming to see the damage. When I got there, I couldn't believe my eyes. The front of my car was completely destroyed. The telephone pole had a massive dent. There were car parts scattered across the street. A police officer was still on the scene writing his report. He looked at me with pity in his eyes. Madison stood there in her party dress, mascara running down her face. She kept saying she was sorry, over and over. But sorry doesn't fix a totaled car. Sorry doesn't fix a suspended license. Sorry doesn't fix the fact that she could have killed someone. The officer told me she'd been arrested for DUI. She'd failed the breathalyzer test. Her blood alcohol was nearly twice the legal limit. He handed me paperwork, accident report, citation numbers, insurance claim information. My hands were shaking as I took them. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family, loyalty, and betrayal that might just change how you see your own relationships. I called my parents. They lived 20 minutes away. My mom answered on the first ring. I explained what happened. Her first question wasn't about the car. It wasn't about the property damage. It was about whether Madison was hurt. Of course I understood that. But what came next made my blood boil. She told me not to worry. They'd handle it. Madison made a mistake. Young people make mistakes. We're family. We forgive and move on. I stood there looking at the wreckage of my car. The vehicle I'd saved for years to buy. My safe, reliable transportation. Now just twisted metal and broken glass. Let me tell you about my family. My parents, Robert and Caroline, are both in their late 50s. Dad's a high school principal. Mom's a nurse. They believe in second chances. Actually, they believe in 3rd, 4th, and 5th chances too. At least when it comes to Madison. Madison is 22, 4 years younger than me. She's always been the baby of the family. The one who could do no wrong. Pretty, charming, and completely irresponsible. But somehow that irresponsibility always got framed as youthful spontaneity. Her mistakes were always just learning experiences. Growing up, I was the responsible one. I got good grades. I worked part-time through college. I paid my own way as much as possible. Madison barely graduated high school. She dropped out of community college twice. She's never held a job longer than 3 months. But Mom and Dad still paid for everything. My older brother Daniel is 30. He's a software engineer. He moved to Seattle 5 years ago. Smart move, honestly. He calls on holidays but stays far away from family drama. Can't blame him. When things get messy, he's conveniently 3 time zones away. Then there's my grandmother, Nana Rose. She's 78 and sharp as a tack. She lives in a retirement community nearby. She's the only one who ever called out the favoritism. She told my parents years ago they were enabling Madison. They didn't listen. They never listen. My boyfriend Jake and I had been together for 2 years. He's a graphic designer, quiet, supportive, and incredibly patient with my family chaos. He was the one who picked me up from the accident scene that morning. He held my hand while I tried not to cry. My best friend Rachel has known me since college. She's a paralegal at a law firm. When I told her what happened, she immediately went into legal mode. She explained my options. She told me things I didn't want to hear but needed to know. Back to that Tuesday morning. My parents arrived at the scene. My mom immediately hugged Madison. She whispered something in her ear. Madison nodded and wiped her tears. My dad looked at the car and winced. But then he looked at me. He said we'd figure it out. We always do. I asked what that meant. He said insurance would cover most of it. I'd have to pay the deductible, of course. Maybe get a rental car for a few weeks. Madison would apologize. She'd learned her lesson. We'd all move forward. Just like that, I stood there stunned. My deductible was $2,000. My insurance rates would skyrocket. Madison gets arrested for DUI and I pay for it? That didn't seem right. I said as much. My dad put his hand on my shoulder. He told me that's what family does. We support each other through hard times. But here's what he didn't say. He didn't say Madison would pay me back. He didn't say she'd face real consequences. He didn't say she needed to take responsibility. It was just expected that I'd absorb this financial and emotional hit because I'm the responsible one. That's my role. Later that day, I sat in my apartment. Jake made me tea. He didn't push me to talk. He just sat with me. Finally, I broke down. I told him I was tired. Tired of being the backup plan. Tired of cleaning up messes I didn't make. Tired of being the dependable daughter who never gets the same support she gives. He asked me what I wanted to do. I didn't know yet, but I knew something had to change. This wasn't just about a car. This was about years of one-sided expectations. Years of watching my sister get away with everything while I followed every rule. That evening, my mom called. She asked if I'd talk to my insurance company. I said yes. They'd need the police report. She went quiet. Then she asked me if I was planning to include the DUI in my claim. I asked why I wouldn't. She said it might make things complicated for Madison. Complicated. That word echoed in my head. My destroyed car was complicated for me. My lost wages from missing my presentation were complicated. My increased insurance premiums would be complicated. But we were worried about things being complicated for Madison. The next morning, I called my insurance company. The agent was professional but direct. With a DUI involved, this was a criminal matter. My collision coverage would handle the car, but the DUI citation meant Madison could be personally liable. They'd pursue subrogation against her. That's when my idea started forming. I called Rachel. I asked her to explain my legal options. She laid it out clearly. I could file a police report as the vehicle owner. I could press charges for unauthorized use of my vehicle. The dashcam footage I'd installed last year would be crucial evidence. Wait, the dashcam. I'd completely forgotten about it. My hands shook as I accessed the dashcam app. The camera had survived the crash. The footage was automatically uploaded to the cloud. I watched in horror as the video played. Madison getting into my car at midnight. She was stumbling. She dropped her keys twice before starting the engine. The video showed her driving erratically, swerving between lanes, running a red light. Then the final moments before impact. She was looking at her phone, texting. She never even tried to brake. The car slammed into the pole at 45 miles per hour. She sat there for 30 seconds before getting out. Then she made a phone call. Not to me. Not to emergency services. To our mother. I felt sick watching it. This wasn't just a mistake. This was negligence. Criminal negligence. She'd stolen my car while intoxicated. She'd driven recklessly. She'd destroyed my property. And she'd called Mom first to start damage control. I saved the footage. I knew I'd need it. That afternoon, Madison showed up at my apartment. She brought flowers. Grocery store flowers, probably paid for with Mom's credit card. She apologized again. She looked genuinely remorseful. But then she said something that changed everything. She told me Mom said everything would blow over. Insurance would handle it. I'd be fine. In a few months, we'd laugh about this. Laugh about this. I asked her if she understood the gravity of what she'd done. She could have killed herself. She could have killed innocent people. She stole my car and destroyed it. She showed no real understanding of consequences. She just assumed, like always, that someone else would fix her mess. I told her to leave. She looked shocked. She said I was being dramatic. It was an accident. Accidents happen. I pointed at my door. She left in tears. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. She was angry. How dare I make Madison feel worse? Hadn't she been through enough? She was facing criminal charges. She needed family support. I lost it. I told Mom that I was the victim here. My property was destroyed. My livelihood was impacted. My sister committed multiple crimes. But somehow I was the bad guy for not immediately forgiving and forgetting. Mom said I was being selfish. Family means sacrifice. I hung up on her. Jake came home that evening to find me researching lawyers. He sat down next to me. He asked if I was sure about this. I told him I'd never been more sure of anything. This pattern had to stop. Madison needed real consequences. My parents needed to understand enabling wasn't helping anyone. Have you ever reached a point where you just knew something had to change? Where staying silent felt like betraying yourself? That's where I was. I scheduled a consultation with a criminal attorney. His name was Marcus Webb. He specialized in cases like mine. Marcus reviewed everything. The police report, the dashcam footage, the insurance claims. He told me I had a strong case. Grand theft auto, DUI causing property damage, reckless endangerment. The charges could stick. Madison could face serious jail time. Was I prepared for that? I thought about it. Really thought about it. This was my sister. Despite everything, I loved her. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself repeatedly. Sometimes love means letting people face consequences so they can actually grow. I told Marcus to proceed. 2 days later, Madison was served with additional charges. I'd filed a formal complaint. The prosecutor was pursuing the case. My parents called me screaming. How could I do this? I was destroying my sister's life. She made one mistake. One mistake. I reminded them this wasn't her first DUI. She'd had one at 19 that they'd covered up. They went silent. My parents demanded a family meeting. Everyone had to be there. Daniel flew in from Seattle. Even Nana Rose came. We gathered at my parents' house on a Sunday afternoon. The tension was suffocating. Madison sat on the couch looking small and scared. Mom's eyes were red from crying. Dad looked exhausted. Dad started speaking. He said family was everything. We'd always worked through problems together. This situation had gotten out of hand. It was time to find a solution. He looked directly at me. He asked me to drop the charges. Madison had learned her lesson. She'd go to counseling. She'd pay me back eventually. We could move past this. I asked when exactly she'd pay me back. With what money? She didn't have a job. She'd never paid back the $3,000 she'd borrowed from me 2 years ago, or the $1,500 before that. Dad said those were different. This was serious. I laughed. A bitter, angry laugh. So money borrowed under false pretenses wasn't serious? Only when legal consequences existed did it matter? Mom jumped in. She said I was being vindictive. This wasn't about the car. This was about punishing Madison, making her suffer. I was jealous of the attention she got. I'd always been jealous. That accusation hit like a slap. Jealous? I'd worked my entire life. I'd earned everything I had. Madison had been handed everything and still managed to destroy it. Daniel finally spoke up. He said this family had serious dysfunction. The favoritism toward Madison was obvious. The expectations placed on me were unfair, but he wasn't sure pressing charges was the answer. It felt extreme. I appreciated his honesty even if I disagreed. At least he acknowledged the pattern. Nana Rose cleared her throat. Everyone turned to her. She said she'd been watching this dynamic for years. She'd warned my parents repeatedly. They'd created a monster. Not because Madison was inherently bad, but because they'd never let her experience consequences. Every mistake was cushioned. Every failure was explained away. That's not love. That's destruction disguised as protection. Mom started crying harder. She said they'd just tried to help. Madison struggled more than I did. She needed extra support. Nana Rose shook her head. Struggle builds character. Support means guiding someone to stand on their own, not carrying them forever. They'd robbed Madison of the chance to become responsible, and they'd taught me my needs didn't matter. Madison suddenly spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. She said she was sorry, really sorry, not just for the car but for everything. She knew she'd been coasting. She knew Mom and Dad always bailed her out. She knew I'd been treated unfairly, but she didn't know how to change. She was scared. Scared of facing real consequences. Scared of growing up. Scared of failing. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse. Not tears to manipulate. Not apologies to smooth things over. Real acknowledgement. I asked her if she understood why I couldn't drop the charges. She nodded. She said she probably wouldn't either. She'd stolen from me. Put lives at risk. Destroyed my property. Those were crimes. Crimes had consequences. Mom stood up. She was shaking with anger. She pointed at me. She said if I went through with this, she'd never forgive me. I was tearing this family apart. I was choosing revenge over love. I needed to decide what mattered more, my pride or my family. The ultimatum hung in the air. I stood up too. I looked at my mother. I told her I'd made my choice years ago. I chose self-respect. I chose boundaries. I chose not enabling destructive behavior. If that meant losing my family, then I never really had them in the first place. Real family doesn't demand you set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Dad tried to mediate. He said we were all saying things we didn't mean. We needed to calm down, take a break, come back to this rationally. But I was done. I'd been rational my entire life. I'd been patient, understanding, accommodating. Where had it gotten me? Standing in front of people who expected me to sacrifice everything and be grateful for the opportunity. Jake, who'd been quiet in the corner, stood up. He said we were leaving. He thanked them for their time. He took my hand and walked me to the door. Behind us, Mom was sobbing. Dad was trying to calm her. Daniel looked uncomfortable. Madison was staring at the floor. Nana Rose caught my eye. She nodded, just once. But that nod meant everything. In the car, I broke down. Jake held me while I cried. He told me I'd done the right thing. The hard thing and the right thing are often the same. I'd stood up for myself. I'd refused to be complicit in a toxic pattern. That took incredible courage. I cried harder because finally someone understood. The next few weeks were brutal. My parents stopped calling. Madison's preliminary hearing was scheduled. The prosecutor watched the dashcam footage. His face was grim. He told me this was one of the clearest cases he'd seen. Madison's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. I had to decide whether to accept it. The plea deal offered probation, community service, mandatory counseling, and restitution. Madison would have a criminal record, but avoid jail time. The lawyer said it was generous considering the evidence. I thought about it for days. I wasn't trying to destroy Madison's life. I wanted accountability. I agreed to the plea deal with conditions. Madison had to complete an inpatient treatment program. She had to pay full restitution. She had to maintain employment for at least a year. She had to write me a letter acknowledging what she'd done without excuses. If she violated any terms, I'd push for the original charges. Her lawyer agreed. The court hearing was surreal. Madison stood before the judge. She pled guilty. The judge asked if she understood the terms. She said yes. He asked if anyone wanted to make a statement. I stood up. My voice shook, but I spoke clearly. I explained how this pattern of enabling had harmed us both. I said I hoped this would be her turning point. The judge looked at me with respect. He said more families needed people willing to make hard choices. He approved the plea deal. Madison was sentenced. She'd start treatment the following week. My parents sat in the back of the courtroom. They left without speaking to me. That hurt more than I expected. Jake and I started couples counseling, not because we had problems, but because I needed help processing everything. My therapist helped me understand that setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was necessary. She helped me see that my parents' anger was really fear. Fear of admitting they'd failed Madison. Fear of change. Fear of losing control. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into new projects. My boss noticed my dedication. She promoted me to senior account manager. The irony wasn't lost on me. Missing that presentation led to something better. Sometimes destruction clears space for growth. I got a new car, better than my old one, paid for entirely by insurance and Madison's restitution payments. 3 months after the hearing, I got a letter. From Madison. She'd completed the inpatient program. She was living in a sober living facility. She'd gotten a job at a coffee shop. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She thanked me. She said treatment opened her eyes. She'd been angry at first, but eventually she understood. I'd given her the greatest gift anyone could, the chance to save herself. 6 months later, Daniel visited. Just him and me. We went to dinner. He apologized for not supporting me more at the family meeting. He said he'd been afraid of Mom's reaction, but watching how I'd handled everything changed his perspective. He'd started setting his own boundaries with our parents. It was hard but necessary. We cried together, siblings united by survival. Nana Rose invited me for tea. She told me she was proud. She'd watched me grow from a people-pleasing girl into a woman of principle. She said my grandfather would have been proud too. She gave me a necklace that belonged to her mother, a simple gold chain with a small compass. She said I'd found my true north. I should never lose it again. If you've ever had to choose between keeping peace and keeping your self-respect, drop a comment below. Your story matters. Your courage matters. Sometimes the people who love us most can hurt us deepest. But that doesn't mean we have to accept it. Jake proposed 9 months after the hearing. Nothing fancy. Just us at home on a random Tuesday. He said he'd watched me face my worst fears. He wanted to build a life with someone that brave. I said yes through happy tears. We planned a small wedding. I decided to invite my parents. The decision was mine to make. I called my mom. The conversation was awkward. I told her about the engagement. She congratulated me quietly. I invited them to the wedding. She asked if Madison could come. I said yes, on one condition. No one could guilt me about the past. If they came to celebrate, not to relitigate old wounds. She agreed. Progress, however small. 1 year after the accident, I sat in a coffee shop waiting. Madison had asked to meet. I was nervous. We'd texted occasionally but hadn't seen each other face to face. She walked in looking different, clear-eyed, healthier. She sat down across from me. She ordered black coffee. The old Madison would have gotten a sugary latte. She told me about her year. She'd stayed sober. She'd been promoted to shift supervisor. She was taking online classes. She'd made real friends in her recovery community. She'd started volunteering at a youth center, talking to kids about the consequences of drunk driving. She was building a life, a real life. Not one funded by our parents, one she created herself. I told her about my year, the promotion, the engagement, the therapy, the slow process of rebuilding my sense of self. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table. She took my hand. She said, "Thank you. Not sorry. Thank you. Thank you for loving her enough to let her fail. Thank you for believing she could become better. Thank you for not enabling her to death." We both cried. Not sad tears. Healing tears. We talked for 3 hours. About childhood. About the family dynamics we'd both survived. About our parents' mistakes and our own. About forgiveness and boundaries. About loving someone while also protecting yourself. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a start. A real, honest start. My parents and I reached a new normal. We talked occasionally. Surface-level stuff mostly. They came to my wedding. They were polite, distant, but present. Mom cried during the ceremony. Dad shook Jake's hand. Madison was my bridesmaid. That raised eyebrows. But she'd earned it. She showed up for dress fittings. She planned my bachelorette party. She gave a speech about second chances and the people brave enough to demand we take them. At the reception, Dad pulled me aside. He said he and Mom had started therapy. They were trying to understand their parenting mistakes. It was hard, painful, but necessary. He said he was sorry for the favoritism, for the expectations, for not protecting me while trying to protect Madison. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just offered acknowledgement. That was enough for now. I've learned that family is complicated. Love and dysfunction can coexist. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't care. Sometimes it means you care enough to demand better. For everyone involved, my relationship with my parents will never be what I once wanted. But it's becoming something healthier. Something honest. Madison continues to thrive. She's 18 months sober now. She paid off her restitution last month. She sent me the final receipt with a note. The note said she's proud of who she's becoming. But she wouldn't be here without that moment in court. Without someone refusing to enable her. Without someone believing she could be more than her worst choices. She keeps that court document framed in her apartment. A reminder of rock bottom and the climb back up. Jake and I are building our life. We bought a house. We adopted a rescue dog. We're talking about kids someday. But we're in no rush. We're enjoying the peace, the freedom of living authentically, of surrounding ourselves with people who respect our boundaries, of choosing love that doesn't demand self-destruction. I still struggle sometimes, with guilt, with wondering if I was too harsh, with missing the fantasy family I never really had. But therapy helps. Jake helps. Knowing Madison is thriving helps. I made the right choice. Not the easy choice. The right one. That distinction matters. To everyone watching this, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not responsible for fixing everyone else. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Boundaries are not selfish. They're necessary. If someone in your life consistently disrespects you, takes advantage of you, or expects you to absorb their consequences, you have the right to say no. Family doesn't give people a free pass to mistreat you. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back. Let people face their choices. Let them grow, or not. But either way, you're not responsible for their journey, only your own. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with family? Have you been pressured to forgive without accountability? Share your story in the comments. You're not alone. These situations are more common than we talk about. There's power in sharing our truth, in admitting that family relationships can be toxic, in choosing ourselves without guilt. If this story resonated with you, please like this video. Subscribe for more real stories about family, boundaries, and finding yourself. Hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes we need permission to protect ourselves. Consider this your permission. I'm not going to tell you I live happily ever after. Real life doesn't work that way. I have hard days. Days when I miss the fantasy of a perfect family. Days when I wonder if things could have been different. But then I remember who I was a year ago. Exhausted, resentful, invisible. And I look at who I am now. Strong, boundaried, free. That's not happily ever after. That's just happiness, and that's enough. The woman in the courtroom that day, the one everyone thought was cruel, she saved 2 lives. Madison's and her own. Sometimes love looks like walking away. Sometimes it looks like pressing charges. Sometimes it looks like choosing yourself. That's not selfish. That's survival. And survival is the foundation of everything else. My name is Haley. I pressed charges against my sister. My family called me a monster. But I'd do it again. Because real love demands accountability. Real family respects boundaries. And real change only happens when we refuse to enable destruction. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Your story matters. Your boundaries matter. You matter. Don't ever forget that.